everybody. It is Monday and I am ready to mount my hands to my lady. So I finished all the fingers up last week and left some metal exposed to weld to. So we're going to flip her around, show you guys what's going on. So she has these cardboard tubes and there is a little bit of metal to weld to sticking out here. So obviously I don't want to catch the cardboard on fire. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and just spray it down with some water, and I'm just going to pay a lot of attention while I'm welding. And basically, you know, if you wet it down with water and you just, you know, make sure you're paying attention, you're not going to catch it on fire. But if you just keep welding and welding, you know, and you're not paying attention to it, it could catch fire. And so you want to be careful of that for sure. But I'm going to go ahead and mount them, and that's what's happening. Let's get to welding. Alright, so I have this hand securely mounted. It's welded in several places. I had to cut her elbow off and actually kind of reposition the metal because it basically goes all the way through here, and I had to kind of reposition over here, so I'll have to reattach her elbow at some point. But this hand is really secure now. I'm going to go ahead and let these welds cool down, and then I'm going to finish the epoxy up on this hand. And then this other hand, I have just kind of like stuck into place for right now. It's kind of just hooked behind this piece of metal here. And so once I've filled in the epoxy over here on this hand, then I'll go ahead and weld that and do the epoxy here too. But if I were, basically it's going to go like here-ish. So it's going to kind of cover up this whole joint and everything. So I'm going to go ahead and get the epoxy done before I attach that one properly. So that's what's happening now. So over the last couple of days, I've gotten both of her hands mounted. They're all welded on there, and basically I just took some epoxy and really like packed it around that weld just to make sure that it was really going to stay. And you know, I'm starting to build up her hands and everything, and now I'm ready to mount her head into the piece. So I've still left a little bit of metal exposed right here to weld to, and then we have the metal in her shoulders exposed. And so between the three of those points, we should be able to get a really solid connection, I guess you would say. So I'm still kind of thinking about how I'm going to do this, but I'm just going to go for it. I think basically I'm just going to drill a hole into either side of her neck and feed a piece of metal through, and then weld that up to her shoulders, and then I'll have a third piece kind of coming into the back of her head from over here. So flip her around. Dolly's catching on something there. Alright, so we got her flipped around now, and I'm going to have her head kind of at an angle like I talked about. And so I've kind of noted that at this point, the angle that she's going to be at, and she's basically going to be right about there. So now I need to figure out how to actually get her mounted. But yeah, I think that should work out pretty well, just to drill a hole in either side, get the metal going through there, and get another piece going back there. So that's what's happening now. So I've gotten my piece of rebar cut to length, and I've got my hole drilled through her head and have that ready. But I realized that I can't actually mount it yet because first I need to mount this bar really securely into her head, because right now it's just kind of slipping around in there. So I need to take some epoxy and basically just cement that in so that it's all one solid piece. So I'm going to do that now, and I'll end up welding this whole deal up tomorrow. So probably should have done this part yesterday, but that's how it goes. Sometimes you get into a project and then you realize, oh, I actually have to do this other thing first. Yeah, but in order to mount this bar into her head, I'm going to use yet another type of epoxy. So I have, hold up. All right, so this is the Polygym 307 FR Light, and what that does is the FR stands for fire resistant or fire retardant, and so basically it's going to allow me to weld really close to this bar, and as I weld this bar, the bar is going to heat up. If I used a different kind of epoxy, the epoxy might just kind of melt in there, or it could even catch fire. But since I'm going to be using the FR Light, which is fire retardant, it's not going to do that. So yeah, I need to basically push some epoxy in here, get that bar really well cemented, and then I'm going to put it kind of just all around the bar, like just probably a good solid inch around the bar to prevent the foam from catching fire when I weld it. Yeah, so that's what's happening now, and I'll be welding tomorrow. Everything is a process. So I've gotten my lady's head mounted, and I've let those welds cool off, and so now I'm ready to start sculpting on her, and this is kind of the last final push to get this sculpture done. Yeah, so what I'm going to be doing now is taking an electric knife and cutting off some of this excess stuff, because the wig form had a lot of it had this base on here for her head to rest on so it would stay flat, and obviously it's just kind of mounted in her body, and playing with the whole negative space that's going on, I want to take a lot of that away. So that's what's going to be happening next, and her hands need a little bit of evening up here and there, of course she's going to need some hair and all that, but I'm really done with welding and assembling, and at this point it's time to just kind of finish her up. I'm going to take some lath and wrap it around here to give her some more defined shoulders. Just different things like that, kind of doing the last bits to finish her up. To do her hair, I'll probably start by attaching some lath to the back of her head, just to get kind of that general shape going. And then I think I'm going to give her some really cool braids. Like, I really like to braid epoxy. It's really fun. So I think that'll be awesome. And yeah, I'm really excited to see how she turns out. So here she is. I'm really happy with the way she's looking so far. I've started building up her shoulders with the epoxy. You can still see there's some lath showing through. So, you know, she's going to need some more work. Her face needs some work still. It's a little bit small for the rest of her body, so I'm going to kind of build up her features some more. You know, she's going to need hair, and her hands need a little more work. But we're really getting into the final stages of this sculpture, and I'm really excited to see how she turns out when she's all finished. Next week I'll be going to Aurora, Colorado with my sculpture Sigma, and so that should be fun. So I may not have a chance to work on her more for another week or so, but she'll be waiting for me. So I'm very excited. And yeah, I really like the way I did it with like doing the head and the hands separate and then mounting them on. That seems like it worked really well. So I think I'll definitely do that technique again with other sculptures. And yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Please like and subscribe and have an awesome weekend. Bye!